do I need to be in order to do what it takes to have what I want to have? Because as our goals shift, it's really important that our habits shift, that our standards shift to match those goals. Because if we don't show up as her, we never get to be her, right? Without Fear of Her Future podcast is for women who are passionately pursuing financial freedom using multiple streams of income and real estate to accomplish their goals. We are here to empower you to be brave, dream big, and design a life that you love that inspires others to do the same. I'm your co-host, Andrea Engstrom, a real estate investor and business coach and co-founder of the Partnership for Realtors. I'm here with my co-host, Tresa Todd, founder of the Women's Real Estate Investors Network and author of the best-selling book, Without Fear of Her Future. Over the past 2 years, Tresa has had nearly 200,000 join her masterclass where she teaches women how to become successful real estate investors. Hey, Tresa.
Hey. Well, Andrea, here's what I think we both know. No one is born with a handbook of how to become successful, and it looks different for everyone. Success is not always defined by how much money or power you have. Success is whatever it means to you. And there are habits that you can do each day to make you feel like a successful person. In this episode, we're going over how to think and act like a successful person to help you reach your own optimum level of success.
I love this topic so much. And I just want to encourage everybody, if you're not already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with our new episodes. They come out every single Friday. But this is a topic that you and I are both very passionate about. So I'm really excited to dig into this. So today we're going to be talking about the habits of successful people, how you can reach your highest potential. So Tresa, when you envision a successful person, what does that look like to you?
Okay, truly what a successful person looks like to me, someone that's happy.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't even matter how much money you make or what you've accomplished. I think if you are happy, you are content, I think that's success. But obviously, in this conversation, we're talking a little bit about, obviously financial success. What is it? And there's no magic number to success. But when someone is doing something that they love, and they are creating an income from that, a very substantial income that is helping them to live the life that they want, that's success to me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think that's what so many people are striving for, even if they don't know how to put their finger on it, because they know how to articulate the money part. And the money part is something that is tangible. But like, how do you put a number on happiness,
Exactly.
And it's honestly, for a lot of people, it's a feeling that they're chasing. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, when they reach that number, they haven't always reached the happy part.
Yes.
And so it's so important to pay attention to both of those things and figure out what success really looks like for you.
And if we're doing something, even though it's made us a lot of money, we hate doing that thing.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't call that success.
Right.
That's a trap that we make for ourselves. So if we talk about let's talk about how a successful person starts their day. What does a morning routine look like to you, Andrea?
Yeah. So you all know I'm really passionate about The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. This is one of the most transformational things for me especially as I became a real estate investor, and I had to figure out who do I need to be in order to do what it takes to have what I want to have? Because as our goals shift, it's really important that our habits shift, that our standards shift to match those goals. Because if we don't show up as her, we never get to be her, right?
That's right.
And so I think the morning routine is really important. And for me, a big part of what I do first thing in the morning, the first things I grab when I wake up in the morning is a journal and a pen. And I even made myself a notebook, and I actually have it near me at all times. I put my values word on the front of it. My values word is integrity, and I always bold the word grit in the word integrity, and it's about choosing courage over comfort, right? But in my notebook is all the things that are the prompts for my miracle morning. So it's what I'm going to do with my silence. It's the affirmations that I've written for myself. It's the visualizations. to review those things. And exercise is something I'm striving for. And I want to talk to you more about that because it's something that you are so good at in your routine. And I aspire to that. But reading and then journaling or scribing for personal development. Journaling is like the biggest, most consistent part of my morning, journaling and affirmations. But I want to hear about for you. Tell me, being an early riser is part of most successful people's routine. Tell me first of all, why do you think that is?
Oh, well, I think you get an early start on everything. We literally have more hours to the day. And I think those first few hours are like the most powerful. How are you going to start the day literally sets in motion what that day is going to look like. And for me, it started 30 years ago when I was raising kids. And that was my only time. Like
Yeah.
I love to get up a few hours before my kids ever got up. And so that's when I started that habit of getting up and, spending a little time with God, spending a little time reading my Bible. And then exactly what you just said. I love to journal and write my thoughts and look at my goals and then just spend some time reading powerful books that are going to transform me. So I think those first few hours of the day are transformational to our life.
Absolutely. And we've heard from you before, Tresa, and I love in your social media, you're always posting. I love this about you. You post the sweaty pictures, and not everybody posts the sweaty pictures, but it inspires us. And it tells us no, not only is she real and she's normal and sweats like everybody else, but you do it at a level that most people aren't willing to. And so we know that exercise is a huge part of your lifestyle. How does having a physical outlet help you be successful throughout your week?
Wow. I got into health and fitness late in my life. I was like in my 40s.
So there's still hope. There's still hope for me.
Absolutely, girl. Absolutely. I was the girl who did not like to sweat. I did not like to hurt. I had joined a gym 2 or 3 different times. I went 2 or 3 times every single time I joined. And then that was the end of that.
We call that the fat tax in our house when you join the gym and you don't go.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And so it just wasn't, I hated it.
Yeah.
And so, but for whatever reason, I won't go into it, but it's interesting. It'd be a great topic for another podcast. That particular year, several things all at one time really made me realize how important it was for me to be healthy. Mm-hmm. And so I just decided, like one day, I just decided that I was going to do this and I was not going to quit. And that's what I did. I just never looked back. And I cannot describe how it changed who I was when I began to do, because I was also the girl that never did hard things. I just was the girl that, was getting by in life. And once I learned that I could push my body to do things that I never knew were possible, it became an addiction. It became absolutely fun. I love to compete. And so I was in these competitions and I was like in my 40s and I was able to do some of these things that the 25s and the 30-year-olds could do. And it was so exciting and so fun. And so I learned about eating healthy and putting healthy foods in my body. And I realized how different I felt, how much more energized I felt. I wasn't weak anymore. I was strong. And then once you realize that you can be strong in your body and feel good, you realize overall in life, I'm leaving so many things on the table. I have the capability of doing so much more than I ever dreamed of. And so I think that it was such a great experience for me right before I became an investor and became an entrepreneur to have a few years of that experience, because I was learning then to push myself and to get uncomfortable. And it's okay if it hurts and it's only going to hurt temporarily, but the payoff is worth it. And I have 7 grandkids and I want to live my life with them. I don't want to be the granny that's sitting in the rocking chair watching them. I want to be whatever they're doing. I want to be doing it too. Yeah. I want to, be right in the middle of it. So, we were supposed to do a mud run just 2 weeks ago and it rained out. So I didn't, but I'm just always trying to do things to push myself.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And this is one of those principles that I talk about a lot, but that I have to I have to put it into practice in this one area of my life. But the concept is that when we take action, the feelings follow. But
Yes.
that if we wait to get started until we feel like it, that it may never come. Like we'll just be sitting here, like I'll be sitting here 20 years from now waiting to feel like doing a mud run. Right. And it may
Yeah.
never come. But if we take a little bit of action, that those feelings follow.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for all of the habits and,
Yeah.
every other habit that I've implemented in my life. I know that that's the truth. So what is the advice that you would give someone who is struggling with one of these daily success habits of
Well,
getting
whatever
started?
that success. So here it is. I mean, it's just been 70% or more of successful people have an exercise routine. And so I
Mhm.
think just realizing that, and it's 70% or higher are readers, 70% higher are of successful people get up early in the morning. So whatever it is, whichever one of these things that you're working on,
Mhm.
um, I think when you realize, listen, if 70% or more of successful people are doing this, why do I think I'm just going to be one of the few that never has to do this, but I'm going to find the success? So I think that we have to truly get convicted about it and say, am I really serious about who I want to be and what
Yeah.
I want to accomplish? And then so not only thinking about the thing we have to do, but think about, like you just said, who am I going to have to become to do the things I want to accomplish and to be the
Yeah.
person? So what some of these habits, whatever the thing is, and you can take one at a time, whether it is to get up 30 minutes earlier or an hour earlier or to go to the gym. I think you have to make a commitment to it and then be married to it. You just don't
Mhm.
make excuses. You can't make excuses. And then when you fail, because you will, there's going to be that day you oversleep. There's going to be that day you don't make yourself go to the gym. But the thing you don't do, or read the book or whatever it is,
Right.
the thing that you don't do is say, well, I'll wait till next Monday when
Right.
it's only Tuesday. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Just get back up the next day and do it. The next day and do it. And if you miss 3 days, do it. Just do it every single time. Have some accountability. I am so mad at myself if I don't carry out the things that I want to do. I'm mad, and I think it makes me mad at my day. It makes me just so frustrated that it has become absolutely vital. And and when people try to get in the way of me doing the thing, I'm like, no, I'm so sorry. I can't meet you at 9 o'clock because that's when I'm going to be at the gym. So you just have to be um, bullheaded about it.
Mhm.
That's how I am. I'll just be honest.
Okay, you just said something I think a lot of people don't get when it comes to creating habits that help you be successful. You said if somebody asks me to do something at 9 a.m., my answer is no because I'm going to be at the gym.
Mhm.
Like, how many people are that dedicated to their own personal success habits that if something fun or exciting or a big opportunity comes along, that they will say no because they are putting themselves in the important spot in their
Yeah.
own life. I think that's huge,
Yeah.
huge.
And I think that that's what we absolutely have to do because there will always be something or someone pulling on you to keep you from accomplishing your goals. And
Mhm.
you have to just be I'm just going to use that word again, bullheaded and say, nope, that's when I do this thing.
Mhm. That's a good boundary. That's a great lesson. I also heard someone say the other day something, and I love this concept, that if you didn't do what you intended to do first thing in the morning, to treat your day like it's four quarters, like there's four quarters in a ball game, right? And if you mess up the first quarter, that's okay. You got three more quarters. So if your
Yeah.
early morning is one, your midday is another, your late afternoon is another, and your evening is another. If you didn't get to read this morning because your kids were screaming at an hour earlier
Hmm.
than you expected, and there's a lot of moms listening that goes,
Yeah.
Teresa, wouldn't that be nice if I could go to the gym at 9 o'clock in the morning? But life happens and people get sick and all those things. But if you didn't do what you wanted to do in the first quarter, you got three more quarters, and you don't have to wait till tomorrow. You don't have to wait till next Monday to do what you intended to do. There's still, and I think a lot of us just go, well, I blew my diet today. I'll
Yeah.
start again tomorrow. Might as well eat cookies for dinner,
Yes.
and but we don't think about, well, no, I could choose right now to have the rest of my day look how it needs to look for me to feel
Absolutely,
good.
girl.
Yeah.
So good. So good. So true. Okay, I want to ask you, Andrea, what is your favorite thing that helps you feel successful?
I love this question. I think for me that one of the things that helps me feel successful is when I'm able to teach something to someone else
Oh, okay.
that helps them be successful or that gives
Mhm.
them confidence. So I think whenever we feel helpless, we need to get helpful.
Mhm.
And I think whenever I've accomplished something, it doesn't always like it feels good, but it doesn't feel real good unless I help somebody else do it.
I like
You
it. And when
know?
you know you really know it, when you can teach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think that that might be part of how I'm wired too, and or like where I'm at in my life is, there's freedom, finances, and fulfillment, right? We're all striving for some degree of those things. And I think where I'm
Yeah.
at in my life, a big part of what I'm striving for is fulfillment. And fulfillment comes from helping others, right? So if we can help others be successful, that's for me, that's part of how I gauge my personal success.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love just the idea of what makes us feel successful
Yeah.
because I think that's important. I mean, we need if we know what makes us feel successful, then let's just do more of that thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And when the thing that came to mind when you asked that, and I had to stop for a second because I put on my lucky blouse today for our conversation about success, Teresa.
I love
So we're
it.
both wearing green today, but this is the blouse that I wore when I first got I got my first job in an advertising agency, and I landed the gig, and I felt like $1 million. And then every time I would pitch like a big deal client, I would wear this
I
blouse.
love it.
And so sometimes there's little things that are cues to our body and to our brain.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we're gonna win this one. This is like, and so I think there's something to that. But what we put on our body comes and goes. But being able to make an impact on other people, I think for me is like a big push.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I am with you. Dressing for success is huge for me. If I've got something big, I love to stand in my closet and think, what do I feel powerful in today? Well, because you want to
Yeah.
look a certain way. And
Yeah.
so I am all about that.
I love it. I love it. I've got a couple power jackets I pull out
Uh-huh.
just for such an occasion.
Uh-huh.
Well, let's talk for a second about the pressure to become successful. So I want to talk about what does this look like for women specifically, because I think there's a different kind of pressure to be
Yeah.
successful in being a woman than there is for the guys out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a tough question. So and we're balancing so many other things.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be here's the deal. We want to okay, for a woman to be successful, she has to look good
Yep.
and she's supposed to be a great mom and have some quality time and make a lot of money and have this killer business and I don't even know and be a great friend and daughter and just all of the things.
Yeah.
And boy, we are going to put ourselves in misery if we try to live up to other people's standards.
Hmm.
So I think that we have to figure out what does success look like for us individually. What are you want to be, and it's different for different seasons, Andrea.
Yeah.
I am a strong believer in seasons that there's a season where we should concentrate on being the best mom
Yeah.
more than being the best real estate investor. Then there's
Mhm.
another, like right now, my all my kids are grown. So boy, this is my season for business. And I am loving every minute of this season. But I remember when my kids were in high school, 3 boys in high school that played sports, my season was getting them to their sports and getting, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I have to be happy doing that, not feeling like part of my life is missing because this is just where I belong right now and
Mm.
keeping that really important.
I'm
Keeping that.
grabbing a book because you just reminded me of something that's like so profound. At the back of the Miracle Morning book, there's this series of quotes that he shares in here,
Uh-huh.
and it says, "Love the life you have while you create the life of your dreams."
Yes. Oh,
Don't
that's
think,
so good.
yeah, don't think you have to wait for the latter to start doing the former. Love the life you have while you create the life of your dreams. So I think you're absolutely
Yeah, that
right.
just gave me chills. I
Yeah.
love it. I love that.
Yeah. Because I mean, whatever season we're in, there's going to be different varying degrees of what we can devote to a
Mhm.
business or to different things. But we got to decide what success looks
And
like.
we can't compare ourselves to someone else.
Hmm.
It wouldn't be fair for somebody, I mean, even like you, Andrea, you're still raising kids.
Right.
And,
Right.
but you're still thriving in business. But it wouldn't be fair for you to compare to me when I have twice as many hours to put into business as you do. And
Mhm.
so I just think that that is so important is you got to compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges, as
Mhm.
well as we all have different desires and
Right.
different, what again, just defining success and just what it means. I think that it is something different in the eyes of every single person.
Mhm. Absolutely. Now, education, specialized knowledge, this is something that you and I are really both passionate about. Let's talk about why this is so important to continue to learn throughout your life. Be
Well,
dedicated to that.
having a growth mindset is a
Yeah.
game changer. Just constantly wanting to grow and to be open minded to new thoughts and ideas and new ways of doing things. And so I think we both, I mean, podcast, reading the right books, putting yourself in the room with people that are a level higher than you are all amazing ways to grow and to continue to grow. And if the opposite of that is becoming stagnant, or even going backward. And if we ever think that we are enough, that we don't have to continue to go attend seminars or read books and that we've just arrived, oh, we're just going to be stagnant.
Mhm.
I absolutely love learning in every way that I can.
Mhm.
What about you?
Mm. Yeah, I love learning. For me, I mean, at this season in my life, so much of it is in books that I read and podcasts that I listen to, in being able to, if I'm going to a conference, to be able to just like really absorb what's going on and meet the right people.
Mhm.
But that's something that gets me like for me, it new information connected to my passion, or it's like whenever you can recharge your brain with new information or new ideas.
Mhm.
And I'm an idea person, this about me, but like I get so excited about new ideas. Like that's what energizes me,
Okay.
as much as anything. Like money in the bank is great, but I love talking about new ideas.
Mhm.
And so when people bring me new ideas, and I feel like we have so much opportunity for this today more than any other time in
Yay.
history. Like, have y'all heard of YouTube? Have y'all heard of Spotify? Like the amount of information that we can consume. I think it's our job though to impart is to get good recommendations
Yeah.
and to be careful about who we allow to feed our brains. Like
Yes.
what we're putting into our brains is really important. So I want to hear from you. Like, let's talk about books for just a moment, because books
Mhm.
are, one of the oldest ways to receive information, but I still think
Yes.
one of the best. So tell
Oh,
me about
I love, love, love to
what
read, and I am definitely one of those people that have 3 or 4 books going at a time.
uh-huh.
Every once in a while, I'll just, like, be in love with one, and I'll read it to start to finish without but I have them everywhere. They are in my car, they're in every room of my house, they're in my office, and whichever one is near me, I just wanna pick it up.
Hmm.
But some of my favorites, um Think and Grow Rich. Think and
Yeah.
Grow Rich. I mean, so it's an old book, but that is just something every single person should read.
Hmm.
It's a mind opener and it is just full of powerful nuggets. And then oh my goodness, my mind is just going blank. It's the one about the habits.
Seven
Um,
habits.
what is it?
The 7 habits of highly successful
7
people.
habits of highly successful people. Oh my goodness. And that's some of the things that we talked about at the beginning of this.
And
If
then the power
Yeah,
of habits.
yes, The Power of Habits. Now that one was an eye opener for me.
Yeah.
What that did for me, Charles Duhigg wrote that book.
Mhm.
And I remember I was living in Tampa when I read that book. That might have been one of those books that I read from beginning to end without putting down, because it showed me that anything is possible. You can create any habit you want, and you can break any habit you want if you decide to. So that book is so powerful. But then the other one that you just mentioned, 7 uh, Habits of Highly Successful People, is, listen, it's going to share with you these 7 habits of highly successful people. And if all of these highly successful people are doing these 7 things, maybe I should too. Maybe I should be doing those things too. And so that is how I believe. I used to hear things like, oh, this is going to change your life. That book will change your life. And I used to think that is so overused. And I feel so differently about it.
Mhm.
I do believe that all the things can change your life, one little piece of your life at a time. If I pick up one new habit that a highly successful person does, I am that much closer to being successful, and that's life changing. If
Mhm.
if I pick up one little nugget from this seminar that I go to or this podcast that I listen to, and I incorporate that thing, it truly is changing my life in just maybe that one small area. But then when you just are constantly bombarding yourself and immersing yourself, you're becoming a new person.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
What about you? Tell me, what are your 3 favorite books that you would recommend?
Yeah. Well, if I might give 4. How about that?
Okay.
I already shared one is The Miracle Morning by Hal
Mhm.
Elrod. And for me, I know if there's a book that I read and reread, because I am not a girl to watch the same movie
Me
over and over
neither,
again.
Andrea.
I want all new
There's no
things.
time for a same movie. Give me something new.
No, but there's a few books that I have gone back to a few times because I knew that when I read it the first time, I wasn't ready for a couple of the lessons, and I'm going to pick it up and read it again. So The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod is one of those things. The number 2 is Everything is Figure Outable by Marie Forleo.
Mhm.
That was such a transformational idea. And I think it was also at a point in my life that I read it. I picked it up because we were reading it in the book club in the mentorship
Uh-huh.
in the Women's Real Estate Investors Network when I first joined. And I was just at a point in my life where it was a message that I needed to hear. And it so shifted my conversation about doing hard things. And for myself internally, like, and I've always talked about, above and below the line and, making sure that you're above the line thinker. And this is just kind of next level for that, but also just gave us some new language. And I think at the time I had so many friends that were in the network and we were all talking about it, that it really solidified that in my heart and in my spirit. And I was doing hard
Mhm.
things and teaching myself what I was capable of. So it really, I think, bolstered me during a time that was really important.
Wow.
The one that I've read more recently, and I just finished this book and I'm just dying over it, and I'm sharing it all the time, is The Power of One More by Ed Milet. Oh, it's
Yeah.
so good. There's some principles in there. And I mentioned one of them earlier. I think the idea of our standards have to align with our goals. And if our standards, and what you mentioned earlier is like your 9 a.m. standard, but we got to have standards that align with our goals. And that's really all that our goals are, is like, what are we willing to do in order to reach those goals? Like, that's our standards. And like, what are we willing to
Yes.
stop doing and to not do anymore in order to reach our goals? Like, and so that was a really transformational idea. And there's literally a dozen transformational ideas, even within the first few chapters of that book. And then the other one that just came to mind was The One Thing by Gary Keller. That is such a good book. That
Yeah.
concept, and the principle behind that is like, what is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? And it's a principle that I use all the time in my goal setting and in my to-do lists and in my daily and weekly, like looking at what I need to accomplish. And I think it's been one of the most like transformational ways to think about productivity, in addition to reaching goals.
Well, of all the books you just mentioned, I have not read that book, and you've
Oh,
actually mentioned it to me a couple of times. So that's going to be my next book.
awesome.
Because I've heard you as well as others mention it, and I think that I'm getting on Amazon and ordering that book.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing about your books. Like, that's something we've
Yeah.
talked about doing for a little while.
Yeah.
Tell me about
Okay.
some of the podcasts that you like to listen to.
Well, you just mentioned Ed Milet. That is my
Yes.
favorite podcast. Every
Yes.
single episode is, I'm just screaming.
Yes.
I mean, they're so good. So Mel Robbins just started a podcast. I think it's the number one podcast in the world right now. And I think
Awesome.
Ed's is number two.
Amazing.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
highly recommend those two podcasts. Obviously our podcast, we can't mention that, not mention that if you're interested in being a real estate investor. But and so I switch back and forth. Those are two that I'm listening to. Like I never miss when they have a new episode. I'm listening. Others, I also balance a lot of faith-based podcasts. So I love Stephen Furtick. He has my pastor Robert Morris. If I miss my Sunday morning, I listen to that. But Brooke Thomas, I love her podcast. So I think it's finding people that you really connect with. And because I could listen all the time, obviously I have to, so I go on a cycle. I have a cycle. And so usually when I am putting my makeup on every day, that is definitely podcast time. So depending on how long they are, I can get in at least a 30 minutes, sometimes a full hour of a podcast. And that could be, anywhere from 1 to 3 podcasts. And I just roll them. So those are some of my top favorite. What about you? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to echo Ed Milet's show. Like that's my number one right now. That's what I keep going back to. When I first became a real estate investor, I was listening to Bigger Pockets all the time, and we love them.
Absolutely.
Lots of great information. And I always made a joke that if I would go for a walk and listen to Bigger Pockets, I would make an offer on a house that day. Like without fail, I would make an offer on a house. And I was making a lot of offers on houses, but I was a lot of the days because it would just fill my body with energy and my brain with energy and like new ideas around how to do this. And it was solidifying some of the things that I was learning in our mentorship, about how this thing works, but hearing it in practical application in like story after story. So that was really helpful. And then I love Marie Forleo's podcast too. Like, I think she's and like you said, find somebody that kind of speaks to you or that resonates. And she's I love her style and her attitude. And she hits me in the right places. So I love it. Love it. Has some great guests.
Well, part of being successful is reaching goals that we set for ourselves. So do you have a goal setting routine?
Oh, I do. I do. So I like to about every 90 days do a goal setting reset where I'm evaluating what are those areas of my life. So people are familiar with the Wheel of Life. I think it's something Tony Robbins teaches as well, but it's like looking at all the areas of your life and saying like, what is my level of satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10? How satisfied am I? And what would a 10 look like in those areas? And I think it's amazing over the course of time how those things change as the season of our life changes or as we achieve a certain goal, we realize the other goals. It kind of goes back to that one thing where we go, what was the one thing I could do? If I did this, everything else would be easier or unnecessary. And I'm like, wow, how many goals can fall off my list because I accomplished my one thing goal? And so with that in mind, I will set goals around the areas and categories, and then I will identify what's the one thing in each of those categories. And then overall, I look for like, what's my one thing overall, that if I were to accomplish that one thing, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. And so I like to do that process about once every 90 days and just make sure I'm in alignment. I want to be in alignment with what I want my life to look like in health and, investing in my family life, relationships, all of those things. It's not just about my business.
I agree. And I love a reset every 90 days because sometimes, we all do the whole at the beginning of the year, we set these goals, but sometimes 90 days in or maybe 6 months in, we realize that's not even our goal anymore.
Right.
Maybe we've already hit it, or maybe you realize that isn't even the direction I want to go anymore. So I can't tell you how many times I have like scratched a whole goal and changed it. Because I just realized that is not the season for this goal, or I already met that goal, or I don't even want to do that thing anymore.
Right.
So I love that. Don't be stuck on something. Just know that we can revamp anytime. So I love that. But then the real question is, how do you measure the success of your goals?
That's a good question. So, if anybody's familiar with SMART goals, we know that if you write a goal, it really has to be measurable, right? And so, I usually will put some kind of a metric when I'm setting a goal. And there's two kinds of goals in my book. There's accomplishment goals, and then there's habit goals. And I think sometimes we'll brainstorm and we'll just put them all together.
Yeah.
But habit goals are something that is ongoing. It's a change that you're going to make to your daily or weekly or monthly routine that has lasting impact, but you're continuously doing it. It's not like I set a goal to start jogging every morning and then I do it one time and I've reached my goal, right? It's a habit. The goal is to create a habit. But for accomplishment goals, it may be that I want to do 12 real estate deals this year, right? And so in order to be on track for that, we have to know, what are the metrics that need to be in place in order to move in that direction? Like, how many offers do I need to make per month in order to get one house under contract on an average of one a month, right? And usually that goes back to the marketing. Like, what do I need to be doing? Who do I need to be talking to? Like, what's the investment that I need to make in order to do that? And so it kind of, usually most of our goals, it's not about the end result as much as it is about the metrics that are happening along the way. And it's, and if it's in a business goal, usually it has to do with, are we doing the marketing? And at what level? How many leads are we talking to? How many leads are we closing? And what is the average dollar sale of those leads? And then number of transactions total. And so we can kind of go back, we can reverse engineer our goals and then know, because we're not going to hit, like in the first quarter necessarily hit our whole year's worth of goals, but we can know if we're on track, if we're actually hitting those metrics.
I agree. Setting, like you just said, setting a goal of 12 deals a year. Now, how am I going to do that? What is that going to take? How many people? How much marketing am I going to have to do? How many leads am I going to have to run? And that is, I think is such a powerful thing, because if we could just throw any kind of numbers out there for anything, but if we don't have to work it backwards, a way to reach that goal, we're going to be very frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's, when you get to 6 and you look up and you go, wow, I don't actually want to do 12 deals this year.
That's right.
I'm going to finish up these deals, and not all deals are made equal, right? Because we could easily do 12 wholesale deals in a year, but if we're doing 12 $100,000 to $200,000 construction budget flips in a year, we may start to feel overwhelmed. After we get to number 6 of those, and I speak from experience there. Like, you may want to decide, do a few and try it out and decide if that's what you really want your life to look like. And then if it's not, then you can shift. And maybe the next 6 deals are wholesale deals, and you don't take on more construction projects while you're in the middle of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, tell us about, this is something that happens to all of us. We get a curveball, and that's a sports analogy. But really what we mean there is that things don't always go the way we plan. Things out of our control will happen, whether it's sickness, relationships, breakups, family stuff going on. And sometimes it's things outside of our control entirely, like a pandemic or a major shift in the economy. So how do you continue to stay motivated when life throws you curveballs?
Okay. This is a fantastic question. And this is something that I started working on long before I was a real estate investor. One thing I just learned is that life is going to throw some stuff at us. All the things that you just mentioned, whether it is health or whatever it is. I mean, the rug is going to be pulled out from under us in so many different ways. And I came from a family where everybody went hysterical when something went wrong. And that is how I was. I was just this hysterical person of, I just so much drama if something went wrong. And when I realized that I was that person, I was in my 20s. I determined that I was going to be a different person. I was not going to. And and here's the deal. We can control. We don't have to be out of control. We can control who we are. And so for me, it was eye-opening to go, I'm as crazy as the rest of my family, And so I just made a decision. So now, Andrea, this sounds crazy. I am like the calmest when bad stuff happens.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, a John Maxwell quote that I say to myself every single time. Okay, there is an answer to every problem, usually more than one. So the minute that I say those words about whatever is coming against me, that gives me a peace. I'm like, okay, there's an answer. I just need to figure out what it is. Also, my faith is huge in this because
Yeah.
when something crazy happens, the very first thing I'm going to do is go, okay, God, you see this. You knew it was going to happen before I did. So give me wisdom, give me direction, give me peace while I work through it. And I think that is a game changer, for me. And then I am immediately going to start figuring out in my mind how to deal with this thing. Is it something that I need to let go of? Because sometimes, a curveball is just a sign that, I don't even need to be doing this. Or how do I revamp? In the real estate world, what throws us a curveball is when your contractor walks out on you,
Yeah.
mid-project. There's no time to freak out. There's no time to whine. You get up the next day and you go find another contractor. And there's no sense in being bitter and, you don't have to badmouth them. You just move on and find another contractor. And it's really that way with every single thing that happens is if we will just let go. There's, we don't have to pay people back. We don't have to. And now let's just fix this problem. What do I need to do to fix this problem, to make this thing go away or to make it better or to move on, to be successful in this particular endeavor? So that, I don't know if that answered your question.
Oh, it does. No, yeah, absolutely. It reminds me, I know I found myself, because I have dark times. I go up and down sometimes, and I can identify, sometimes it's connected to what's happening in my life and circumstances, or things that are happening that I can't control. Right.
Yeah.
And when I find myself starting to just like get grumpy or sad or angry. And my default emotion, I don't know about you, my default emotion is angry. I go to angry. And so I'll just like fester or fume about something. And so that's when I figure out I have to have an attitude shift, because we can't control other people, can't change it, can't control circumstances, but we can control ourselves and our own attitudes. And I was in a particularly like rough moment, and I sat down on the couch, and something in my mind, I know what it was. So a lot of our listeners know that like recovery is part of my story. And so the serenity prayer comes to mind. It's, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so I just sat down and I prayed that prayer, and it came to my mind to make a list of all the things that I can do.
Oh, that's so
because
cool.
I was so mad about what I can't do, like what's not going my way. And so I wrote a list of all the things I can do. And it was like, I can wake up early and do whatever I want to do with that hour. I can get a partner if I need a partner on this deal. I can eat healthy. I can exercise.
Yeah.
I can learn what I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And then decide. And then I decided what I was going to do. Like I made a list of all the things I can do, and then decided what I'm going to do. And I got up and I started doing it. And it's not because I felt like it. It's just that I knew that I had to take action because my feelings were dark. And I just want to encourage everybody that's listening that, when you feel like life is throwing you a curveball or the rug's been pulled out from under you, one of the worst things we can do is focus on what we can't control, because there's nothing you can do to change that stuff. But what we can control is ourself, our attitudes, our words, our actions. And so just focus on what you can control.
I agree. I just want to throw this in here. Once you make a habit of doing the things that we're just talking about, when we become determined that when life throws us a curveball, we're not going to freak out. It's a game changer, and you have the upper hand. You have the upper hand, because I think that we saw this in the pandemic.
Yeah. So
many people absolutely freaked out during the pandemic. They just fell apart. And those who didn't fall apart Do you know that there were more millionaires and more billionaires created in between 2020 and now
Wow.
than any other years ever?
That's
Is that not
amazing.
because you know what?
Yeah.
There were other people that while the majority of the world was falling apart, there were other people that were okay. This is time to revamp. This is time to try something new. This is time to and if we can always, in every situation, when something negative comes our way, when something bad happens, instead of falling apart, instead of being, angry and defeated, to go, okay, this is my opportunity. This is what am I going to do with this new thing? How am I going to make the best of it? So
Mhm.
let's get in the habit of thinking like that because more bad stuff is going to happen to us. And
Yeah.
let's be prepared for it.
Yeah, it goes back to that growth mindset that you
Mhm.
mentioned earlier, and we like to say the most expensive thing that you can own is a closed mind. And I'm reminded of this pandemic, and now what we're in the midst of right now with whatever kind of economic downturn this is or ends up to be.
Mhm.
In 2008, there was also some of the most innovative
Yes.
companies came to fruition, and millionaires and billionaires created during that
Yes.
time too. And so I just want everybody who's, feeling some fear or anxiety about what's currently happening is that in the economic situation that this is also a great time of opportunity for people who
Yes.
think differently. Be someone who
Absolutely.
thinks differently.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
So let's talk about celebrating successes. So Teresa, I think you're really good at this. How do you celebrate big victories, and do you celebrate small victories as well?
Okay, so we are a celebrating family. We
I love it.
celebrate everything. Every single thing we celebrate. We actually have a lot of things right this minute individually that we need to celebrate, and we've literally not had the time because every time we close a deal of any sort, it's dinner. And we're toasting to that thing. And I don't know if you know this, but Justin just recently got engaged. And so
Ooh,
yeah, I mean, that's a huge celebration.
yeah,
I just moved into my house.
yeah,
Um, we've just got lots of new things that we have accomplished in the last 70 days.
yeah.
And we have had no time to celebrate. It's driving us all crazy. But we're waiting for that big celebration. So yes, we are celebrators of all the things. And it doesn't even have to be a huge thing if you just mark it as a celebration.
Yeah,
Listen, we were going to go to dinner anyway.
yeah.
And now it's a celebration dinner and we're going to toast the thing and now it's a celebration.
Love
And
it.
so if we can just get in the habit of doing that and saying it out loud and let's be celebrators of each other.
Mm.
That's what's so awesome is, Justin, just closed on a 50-acre ranch the other day. And, we have to be responsible to celebrate him for that,
Yes.
So that is, if we will just begin to recognize every little thing that somebody does and celebrate them. And if nobody is celebrating you, then you have to do it yourself. And it's as simple as, post it on your social media
Yeah.
and celebrate yourself that way. For me, it's a shopping spree, girl. That's my thing. If I make a little extra money on something, a lot of people want to, go on a trip or something, but hey, all I need is a couple hours of shopping and it's all inward. It is literally for me. I am celebrating something when I go on that shopping spree. So even the small things, I celebrate them. If you if you're consistent with working out for 5 days in a row, don't celebrate with pie. I am a believer. Celebrate. I think a good way to celebrate some of the smaller things is a social media post.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that looks like bragging. And first of all, who cares? Second of all, it's okay to shout it to the world and it helps other people to
Yes.
celebrate you, but it also helps them to get used to celebrating themselves.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And I just want to encourage people too that when you share your victories with other people, it encourages them to be
Yes.
brave.
It's inspiring.
Yeah, yeah. And when you and and I know that there's things about giving secretly too, and there's something really beautiful and special about that also. But I also love to encourage people that if you've been blessed and you are giving, to like it is okay for other people to know that, because you are also inspiring other people and other businesses and companies
Yes.
to go, wow, we should be doing that too, or
Yes.
and to shine light on that cause or that organization. And so if you've been blessed and you want to celebrate by giving a gift, like let other people know like what you're doing and why.
I love that, Andrea. That's
Yeah,
so true. And here's the deal,
yeah,
you know your heart. You
yeah,
know if you're doing it just to brag or if you're really Listen, I was never able to give.
yeah,
So whenever I am able to do it now, oh my gosh, it's out of humility and it's out of awe. And
yeah.
so if I am sharing it, it is not because I want you to know, oh, look at me. It is like, look at God, how he has blessed me. And now I'm able to do this thing. But I'm so glad you said that because I love to see what other people are doing because it does like remind me. It's like, oh, yeah, when's the last time I've blessed someone in that kind of a way? So I love
Absolutely.
that.
All right. Well, tell us, Teresa, about. So there's so many good habits, successful habits. There's 7 habits of highly successful people. There's, the miracle mornings, lifesavers, etc. But let's just narrow it down a little bit.
Mhm,
So if were like the top 3 habits that you can think of that
mhm.
our listeners can start doing today that would help them become a more successful person, what would those 3 things
Okay. Well,
be?
number one, I think this is so important is getting out of bed when you set the alarm.
Ooh, girl.
Number one, just
Yeah.
that simple thing. Do not hit that snooze button 3 times.
Hmm.
Set the alarm and get up. That one thing alone is going to make you feel good about yourself versus how you feel about yourself when you keep hitting that snooze. You're frustrated with yourself whenever you get up. Um so that is number one. If you've all heard the story about making the bed, I make my bed every single day. The minute that I get out of my bed, I make the bed. One thing, it keeps me from wanting to crawl back in it.
Yep.
But second of all, my mom really taught me this. Listen, if you make your bed, your bedroom is 70% clean. No matter what else it looks like, if the bed is made, it at least looks a little better and feels a little cleaner. And a clean environment, a pretty environment I enjoy that. So that
Mhm.
means a lot to me. If I walk into the house at night and my bed's not made and I've got clothes everywhere, it's just a yucky feeling. So for me, hitting that snooze button, um, making the bed, and then if I'm going to say there's one thing that is the most important thing that you could do to make your day better, that will make your week better, that will make your life better, and that is spend some time with the one who created us.
Mhm.
Spend some time with God. Open up the Bible, even if it's for 2 minutes, and read one scripture. Listen, this morning, I have a new calendar that's got a scripture on it, and that scripture for November the 9th, like, leaped off the page to me today, and I'm so thankful for that. I've thought about it throughout this day 2 or 3 times because the Bible is the Word of God. That is like a book to us. And then just to lay your burdens down, whatever's bothering you, nobody can fix that thing like God can. So just to spend 5 minutes saying, God, whether it's your child you're worried about or your finances or a deal that's falling apart or that new contractor that you've got to replace, just spending a few minutes like praising God and laying down your burdens and knowing that He's got us. Those are those are the 3 things that I wouldn't trade for anything.
I love it. That's such good stuff. That's such good stuff. And a great peek into like the mind of a successful person. And I know you teach this class called Designing a Life That You Love. And so much of what you just said points back to that and becoming who you want to be.
Yeah.
And it all starts with that. Love
Okay.
it.
Well, it's your turn.
Okay.
We always ask our guests for 3 takeaways. So, What 3 things would you advise an investor or an entrepreneur who is looking to be brave and grow, or is perhaps feeling stuck where they are?
All right, and I'm going to point back to some of my habits as well. So number one for me is get into the habit of journaling, like writing down your thoughts. Sometimes I write down my prayers. It's also that's how I problem solve. If I write down something that's like, I don't know how to solve this thing, like writing about it really helps me. But sometimes I also write to get clarity of what I want my life to look like. And so in Marie's book, Marie Forleo's book, Everything is Figure Outable, she gives a couple of journal prompts that I think are really powerful. One is, what I really want is. What I really want is, and you write it over and over and you finish that sentence to just try to bring some clarity, because so many of us, nobody's asking us what we want. We have to figure it out for ourselves,
Yeah.
and then, put it out there and ask for it or make it happen. And another way to think about this is to write down, like, wouldn't it be cool if, because sometimes we can't even think for ourselves. And so if we can't think for ourselves, we could just say, wouldn't it be cool if?
I like it.
Yeah. And so getting to some clarity. But for me, journaling is one of those success habits that's just like kind of at the core. And I've been doing it since I was a kid. And it's just a habit that's continued throughout my life and ramped up in different ways based on where I'm at and what I'm doing. But then from the journaling, I also moved to setting goals. So it's not just like, wouldn't it be cool if, and then there's no action behind it. Because for me, goal setting is about setting my intentions for the actions that I will take. And so a journal becomes goals, which becomes priorities, and standards, which becomes, your to-do list every day.
Yeah.
And then also like the third thing for me would be reading books. So reading to gain the knowledge that you need to learn to be able to become who you need to be. And I think, joining mentorships, joining mastermind groups, going to conferences, listening to podcasts, all of those things. But there's also just something about reading, and it's accessible to everyone. And so borrow a book, go to the library, pick up a book that helps you become who you need to be, so that you show up to your life as the person that you need to be to do what you want to do and have what you want to have.
I agree. You've heard me say that one of my pet peeves is when somebody says, well, I'm just not a reader. Like, well, just become one.
Yeah.
Instead of just declaring that you're not something.
Yeah.
That's just, why would you say that? I'm just not a reader. Just become a reader. It's so vital. It's so life-changing. And there's just, yes, Audible is good. Audible is second, but it's not first. There's something different about seeing the words. And obviously, if you've got severe dyslexia or something, it may not be possible. But other than that, you can become a reader. And the power in those books of millions of brilliant people have put their words in a book and on paper for us to consume. So let's consume.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Well, great conversation today. As always, Tresa, thank you so much. And on behalf of the Women's Real Estate Investors Network and Tresa Todd, I'm Andrea Engstrom, encouraging you to be brave and dream big.